after the second time, it seemed like the compulsion to do it was too strong, and I didn't even try to stop it after that. So no, race had nothing to do with it. It was just their looks. After
When Tracy Edwards met Jeffrey Dahmer in the late afternoon on July 22, 1991, at Grand Avenue Mall in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, he had no idea he was speaking to a serial killer. By this time, Dahmer had murdered 17 boys and men. Dahmer had body parts, including severed heads, hands, and male genitalia, in his apartment. Tracy was with two other friends hanging out and drinking beer at the mall that afternoon when Dahmer approached the group. Jeff was not completely unknown to Edwards, as he had seen him before. The two men had exchanged casual hellos a few times. At about 6 p.m., Dahmer walked up to the three men and began a conversation. He told them that he was visiting from Chicago and that he'd come to take care of his sick grandmother.
Okay, and then me and Dahmer, my friends say they're going to go and change and call up the girls, and we'll meet up later on, you know.
Was there an address given as to where you were going?
He gave them some address that wasn't correct.
You later found that out?
Right, from my friends.
What happened then? Who else remained there when this was all transpired? Just you and Mr. Dahmer, or you, Mr. Dahmer, and others?
After it all had transpired, it was me and Mr. Dahmer in the cab, you know.
You met up at about 6:15. 6:15. What time is it now, at this time?
It's maybe 6:30 as we get to 26th in Wisconsin.
So you stop at 26th in Wisconsin, and what happens there?
Okay, we get out the cab then, and then he suggested he go to the store and get cigarettes before he went to his apartment.
And after he did that, did you go to his apartment?
Yeah.
What route?
Through the alleys, through the back way.
Was there any discussion as to why you were taking that route?
Said it was safer, people wouldn't bother us or whatever.
As the men continued to talk, Jeffrey used a ruse that had been successful in the past. He told them he was a professional photographer who paid people for pictures. Dahmer then asked if anyone was interested in making some money. Jeffrey went on to explain that if interested, it would be nude photographs. Tracy and his friends continued to speak to Mr. Dahmer, asking questions, and as Edwards would later say during his testimony at Dahmer's trial, quote, to try and figure out what was going on. Dahmer told the men he would buy them beer and rum and cokes. He said they could watch videos. They eventually left the mall and headed to a liquor store on foot. According to testimony, Edwards and Dahmer were going to meet up with Tracy's friends later in the evening at some point. The plan was for the other two men to join Dahmer and Edwards at Jeffrey's apartment. Mr. Edwards would later learn that Dahmer had given his friends the wrong address. But who was Tracy Edwards before he became known as Dahmer's last intended victim, who ultimately led police to the apartment where serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer lured, drugged, brutalized, dismembered, and even cannibalized 12 men and boys, who went undetected by law enforcement for decades. That is, until Edwards was credited with stopping Dahmer and preventing him from killing anyone else. Unfortunately, not much is known about Tracy Edwards prior to that fateful meeting with Dahmer, only that he was from Tupelo, Mississippi. Due to the publicity surrounding Dahmer's case, Mississippi officials located Edwards, who was wanted for the sexual battery of a 14-year-old girl. It is believed that after his arrest for that crime, Edwards fled from Mississippi to Wisconsin, where he managed to evade law enforcement. In 1992, after testifying in Dahmer's trial, authorities caught up with Tracy Edwards. He was extradited back to Mississippi to face charges. After serving his time and being released, Edwards then returned to Milwaukee. Over the years, he would be arrested for drug possession, theft, property damage, failure to pay child support, and bail jumping. He lived in and out of homeless shelters. Edwards' former defense attorney, Paul Siksinski, would later say, quote, "Edwards abused drugs and drank alcohol excessively. He had no home. He just drifted from place to place." Later, when the families of Dahmer's victims got together and sued him, Edwards didn't participate in the trial. His attorney would comment, quote, "My personal belief is he didn't because he'd have to remember what happened. Indeed, who would want to recall the nearly 4 hours he spent in Dahmer's apartment?"
He changed again at that point, like he got more aggressive at that time.
Okay, now, but tell us, did he still have the knife out?
Yes, he still had the knife.
And what did you do?
Okay, I kind of like laid on my sides. For some reason, I guess God told me not to lay flat down or let this person handcuff me, so I didn't.
So you were trying to stop that from happening, but you got down on the floor.
Right.
What did he do?
He kind of laid across me, put his head across my chest at that point.
What was he doing with his head?
Pardon me?
What did it appear to you he was doing with his head? What was he trying to do?
Like he was listening to my heart, because at a point he told me he was going to eat my heart at that point.
In 2011, Edwards would find himself on the wrong side of the law once more. This time, he would be accused of murder.
20 years ago, Tracy Edwards escaped Dahmer's apartment and led police to the serial killer. Today, Edwards was back in court, this time as the defendant.
Tracy Edwards and another man, Timothy Carr, are charged with recklessly endangering safety. Edwards' attorney asked that his client not have to appear in intake court today to avoid being shown on camera, but the court denied that request. A witness told police on Tuesday night, Edwards and Carr threw a third man into the river in downtown Milwaukee. That man, named Johnny Jordan, drowned.
Tracy Edwards, who had once been hailed a hero, was never able to put his life back together after Dahmer. Indeed, Kaczynski would later be quoted as characterizing Edwards as Humpty Dumpty after his harrowing ordeal. Sadly, Edwards never sought any kind of psychological treatment for what happened to him. Quote, "Instead, he chose to self-medicate with alcohol and drugs on the street. He didn't go into treatment because that would cause him to have to remember what happened." This, according to his former attorney, who last saw Edwards in 2015. Today, Tracy Edwards would be around 63 years old. His current whereabouts remain unknown.
Anyone that brushed with Dahmer and survived realized later that they had a close call with death itself. One can't walk away knowing that you were virtually in the claws of a man who killed 15 people at least, and not going to have some impact on things.
Sean Brown, who plays Tracy Edwards in the Netflix series, wrote on his Twitter, quote, "I have so much love for Tracy Edwards, and I hope that through my portrayal you will also. I hope you have love for all the victims, and maybe, in time, you will have more love for one another. Empathy and awareness can create heaven on earth if we allow it. We are one. We are all beings made of stardust. Much love to you all."